Before this rant begins, I want everyone to keep this phrase in mind. A broken clock is right twice a day. Everyone got that? A broken clock is right twice a day. Keep that in the back of your mind, as we'll be coming back to it at the end. Now, I've often considered myself as someone who stays in the center. I'm not left, I'm not right, I'm not liberal nor conservative. I'm practically an anarchist, or apolitical, whichever one is the right term. I will not deny that racism, sexism, and prejudice exist, but I'm not going to demonize white males for just existing. I'm not going to check my privilege, whatever that means, and don't bother explaining it because I don't care. But I'm not going to act like I'm better than everyone. So strap yourself in, it's time for more SJW bashing. We all know that SJWs are very quick to hate on people, specifically white males, but yet are absolutely blind to their own hypocrisy when they judge people before even knowing who they are and refusing to listen to their point of view because they disagree with it. They complain about not having female avatars in games and think it would be easy to add them, when in fact, it's not. Because you have to design the avatar, model the avatar, clothe it, rig it, animate it, voice it, test it for bugs. Take it from someone that's done this. It's not as easy as you'd think. So if you didn't plan for it ahead of time, adding a whole new avatar can cost hundreds of thousands of dollars and tosses on weeks of time, which pushes the release date back. That was rather quick. I suppose that's what happens when you beat a dead horse into a pile of rotten mush. Hold on a second. Let me take a look at my notes here. Oh, that's right. This isn't about SJW bashing. This is about people jumping at SJW Boogeymen. Oh, that makes so much sense now. Alright. So recently, someone asked me to talk about how Polygon, who should probably be credited as co-producer for these rants since, they keep getting mentioned lately. Someone in the comments in one of my videos, and I'm not going to say who or which video for the sake of trying to hide their identity, asked me to talk about how Polygon was bitching and moaning about Call of Duty World War II, and how they were complaining about it being a white man thing and wanting diversity. So after clarifying which article it was, as there were a few about the game, so that way we were on the same page, I started to question if this is one of those times where people from alternate dimensions cross paths, as the article did not read like how the person explained. I'm going to give you the short version of the article that I read. Allegra Frank and Owen Good were calling out Activision and Sledgehammer Games on their presentation of Call of Duty World War II, as the two companies were talking about how diverse they were being with the game, but yet historically accurate, and showing lots of white males in the game. The two Polygon writers were saying that the game developers were just going down a checklist of things to say to pander to people, and therefore their words did not match what they showed. Ergo, the entire presentation came off as insincere when talking about diversity. I never got the vibe that Polygon wanted the game to rewrite history, but that the game devs shouldn't say something that they don't mean just because it sounds good when marketing the game. Polygon even said that during that point in history, there was still segregation of blacks and whites in the military, which didn't stop until 1984, 3 years after World War II ended, but it did lay the groundwork for integration of the military. That comes off as a common sense type of thing to me, saying one thing but showing the opposite of it. And all Polygon did was call out the insincerity. Have the social justice warriors made things that bad that people who oppose their views are reacting to things where there is no social justice to be had? They're jumping at SJW Boogeymen. There's no SJW rhetoric in that article. Look, I've worked in the corporate world for over 11 years. I've earned my PhD in sniffing out bullshit. Now, the article itself does come off as pretty arrogant, as it was written by woke millennial hipsters, so I can understand that some people are getting the SJW vibe from it, but I didn't get that SJW vibe from it, and that's something that usually permeates their work. They did ask if people of color would be playable and asked why not show them as playable. This was an article where you could tell they were restraining themselves from beating the anti-white male drum that they usually do. They pounded it a couple times, but they weren't trying to march to it. And I've brought this up before. When Tracer's butt pose was changed to a different pose, people flipped their shit and were calling censorship and SJWs ruining a game. That wasn't even the case. Someone on the forum said that the original pose did not match Tracer's personality, and even said that it's not a Widowmaker pose, as Tracer isn't a character defined by flaunting her sexuality. And with Tracer being a mascot for the game, having her flaunt her sexuality undermines the character they built. The person was not wrong, and that person had no issue with Widowmaker flaunting her sexuality because it was in her character to do so, design-wise anyways. Blizzard agreed, so they changed it to fit Tracer's personality, giving a little more energy to it. You could argue that's just a different kind of risque, as it's showing off her legs. But anyway, people to this day still maintain their belief that SJWs made Blizzard change the pose. But the person wasn't complaining about Widowmaker's boobs practically hanging out, or how Widowmaker's outfit really contours to her butt, more so than Tracer's. If that person was complaining about Widowmaker, then I would agree that they were an SJW dipshit. But they weren't, so it's not. It was a critique. They weren't demanding for the pose to be changed. They said that Blizzard has done a really good job with making strong female characters, but didn't want to see them reduced to sex symbols just to sell a game, as it undermined the work that they were doing for it. I mean, come on, that person does have a point. Then there was that Baldur's Gate expansion where gamers were complaining about a transgender character and how they were shoving SJW nonsense into the game. Again, no. It was a single NPC, and you had to follow a very specific dialogue tree to get to it. If it was buried in a specific dialogue tree, is it really that big of a deal? No, it isn't. So it's an NPC that's trans. So what? Was there a great earthquake? Did the sun become as black as sackcloth? Did the moon turn as red as blood? Are the stars falling? Is the sea boiling? No. Okay, then it's not the end of the world. I was laughing at how the writer, who was female and enjoying gamers pooping their diapers as the reveal of a trans character and the backlash it received, and she was just trolling people who were upset at perceived SJW rhetoric invading their games, which it wasn't. Now, if the character was programmed to come up to you and proclaim themselves as transgender upon first meeting them, then yeah, I would agree. I heard that did happen in Mass Effect Andromeda, but I don't know because I haven't played that game. Then there was Virginia. Oh my, now this was funny. People were calling it Tumblr the video game, all because the main character is a black woman. Of all the times these people tell SJWs to make their own game and to stop whining about inclusivity and sexism and all that, they sure whined about this game being full of SJW rhetoric. I haven't played it, but it looks like it takes inspiration from the X-Files. Oh yeah, there's a ton of SJW rhetoric there. How silly of me not to assume otherwise. It's gotta suck to be a game developer nowadays. You have a white male character in the game and all of a sudden you're racist, sexist, homo, and transphobic. You put a black woman in the game and you're a social justice warrior that has an agenda to push about transgender rights. Arnita Sarkeesian ended her tropes versus women in games videos. Zoe Quinn's book is going to come out and no one is going to read it, other than people who know about Gamergate and are only reading it out of sheer morbid curiosity. Rihanna Wu is a paranoid laughingstock. Polygon will only look less reputable as they try pushing their agendas. These are people who systematically destroy their own credibility without even realizing it, as they act like they have more power and influence than they actually do. And they have none. While they had their 15 minutes of fame by being the flavor of the month by more traditional media, no one cares about their problems. But like I've said before, and probably many times and will probably many times cover it again, SJWs have created more pushback to the point of actually causing more harm to their own cause. There's a transgender character NPC, meh, social justice warriors. There's a woman protagonist, social justice warriors. There's a black woman protagonist, social justice warriors. You're jumping at ghosts that aren't there. Not only do we have people who are offended at things that are silly and stupid to be offended at, and deserve a good hard smack upside the head, but now we have people who are offended at people who are offended. But it's even gotten to the point where they're offended at any perceived person who may or may not actually be offended. Not all social justice warriors have their heads so far up their asses that their body's a hat. And as strange as this may sound, there is the rare occasion where they have a point and might be correct. Like I said in the beginning, a broken clock is right twice a day, and even a clock that's slow will eventually tell the right time. It may take a while, but it will. So there's no need to be jumping at these SJW boogeymen. So please, listen to what they have to say, use some common sense before determining if it's bullshit or not.